In this episode, we're stepping into the warm, rustic tones of Neil Young's 1972 masterpiece, Harvest. Featuring a blend of folk, country, and rock, Harvest became a defining album not just for Young, but for an entire generation searching for meaning in a rapidly changing world. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Eric, I never get tired of saying welcome, friends, because we're always hopefully welcoming new friends into our little world.
That is the hope. That is
I always am ready to say welcome, friends. It's become second nature or third nature, even.
Yeah.
Just to say that when we start off. So if you're new to the show, welcome, friend. You've just become officially a friend, and if you're a returner, you know the story. You know the players. You know who the players are here.
That's right.
You know,
sit down on your comfy couch of your own, or a chair, or floor.
Settle it.
Yeah. Hey, maybe even if you're lying down in your bed, whatever, the lights are off.
Close your eyes.
Close your eyes. Just drift off. We'll take you there.
We'll take you the rest of the way into Sleepy Town.
Yeah.
We are experts at having our listeners achieve REM sleep in the fastest time possible to go from normal. But hey, everybody serves a purpose, and if we do that for you, we're okay with that. So if you stay for the music and the fun, we got plenty of that. We've got our guest, Mr. Rob DiStefano, with us. And you're not going to be seeing the video, but Eric will be very happy to note that the Godfather poster has been taken off the floor.
Yeah.
No longer behind.
I put it on the other side of the room.
See how quick he responds?
He's just tired of hearing us bitching about it, man.
It's like, I got to move this fucking poster because they're going to get out of control
about it. Yeah.
So this is getting absurd. So Rob, welcome aboard. You were with us on our CSNY episode, right? Yeah. So I figured let's bring Rob back for Harvest from
Neil
Young.
I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, we're gonna delve into the solo work of probably the most iconic member of that group, even though he was begrudgingly a member of the group.
Yeah.
But let's get going with the stats, and then we'll delve into the weird world of Neil Young and more specifically this fantastic album Harvest. So it was released in February 1972, produced by Neil Young, Elliot Mazer, Henry Louis, and Mr. Jack Nietzsche, who we will talk about his contributions to this record. All songs were written by Neil Young on this album. There were two singles released: Heart of Gold hit number 1, and then a double A-side with Old Man and The Needle and the Damage Done. Very uplifting, peppy pop songs for the early 70s. And accordingly hit number 31. This album did hit number 1 on Billboard, and it did go 4 times platinum. And Mr. Neil Young is a 2-time Hall of Fame inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Rob, twice. Once as a solo artist, and the other time...
Crosby, Stills, and Nash?
No.
Oh, no, Buffalo Springfield.
Buffalo Springfield. I thought that too. I'm like, wow. So I guess... because Crosby, Stills, and Nash are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it wasn't CSNY.
That's surprising. I'm
right?
surprised.
I mean, he was only really on, in their heyday, one album, and then the second time he appeared was American Dream. I mean, he had some, helped with the single like Ohio and stuff, but
yeah, he was already working solo at that point.
Yeah. And he was again, like we said in that episode, Eric, right? He was begrudgingly shoehorned into this group. He's like, I don't really, I'm friends with these people, but but ironically enough, they show up. A couple of them show up on this album. So, so this was 1972, and by this time this was his Neil Young's third solo album. Mm-hmm. Because he had his first one, and then after the Gold Rush, Then Deja Vu came out, right, from CSNY.
Right. So he was already wearing
then
this.
Would you include Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere? With
No, this would be his fourth then. Yeah, I'm sorry, his fourth studio album. You're right. Thank you for that.
Yes, Rob.
Oh yeah, this guy, very prolific. Again, 4 albums and also the CSNY project as well. Yep. So, Harvest, yeah, this, I guess there's other. We could have probably chosen After the Gold Rush, Eric, as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just as important, but I don't know. There's something around this time when he was finishing up with CSN and the people that he has on this album as well, helping him in the background. I just think it's kind of, I think this one's very emblematic of this aspect of Neil Young, because there's so many different aspects to Neil Young, right? He's so many different things, and that's one of the. He's literally a musical chameleon. He does not let himself be bound by labels, or when he feels he's being labeled, he consciously turns, which is what he did after this album. Specifically, when Heart of Gold went to number 1, he goes, "Well, that's it. I'm not going to keep doing that kind of music."
Yeah,
you would like literally like. So it's like, okay, well, I think he said, I decided to turn the car into the ditch because it's much more interesting. You meet much more interesting people in the ditch than you do on the road. So I guess so. His decisions are very conscious, and I was thinking about it, Eric. Though that's got to be scary. Like especially back then, like you're kind of. You need to have hits to kind of keep everything going. And you get a number 1, right? And it's it's one of my favorite songs of probably all time and definitely of the 70s. But then to say, yeah, fuck that. Like, this is your right. Because I was thinking about it, like for musical artists, right? Or people that create art, you're really solely dependent on how popular you are to make a living, right? To pay the bills. You need to have, so I just thought it was, I don't know why. I mean, he's not the first person to do this, but I thought it was very curious from to really have that kind of attitude early on.
Yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on, especially around this time, a certain sound was happening, especially in California. And, not necessarily this album was part of that. I guess it was it sounds like it was, but I think, there was such a strong emphasis on making albums too. That was key. I don't know if if people had it in their head that we have to have several hits to make an album, or if what was the preference there. It's like, I just want to express a full body of music that I've come up with. And I guess in his case, I would like to think that that's probably the case. I don't know, but judging from the way, like you said, like the way he, changes form, constantly thinking about such things going probably already thinking about the next effort, writing stuff. Yeah. I'm like, I have to do that, something else. And like you pointed out, it's not an easy thing. But I don't know if the concern was necessarily him trying to make hits, though. I don't know. So
I think that Rob, I think the thing that's maybe the thing that's baffling to me is that though, it doesn't seem like it's a natural progression. It seems like he made the decision. Like, some people progress in their music. It seems like he made the decision. Well, I number 1 popular, yeah, but moving off of that.
Yeah, it's impressive too when because I mean that era of music in the early 70s could arguably be considered one of the best times for music, album wise and groups wise, and he stood out among all of them, and to make like a change like that, and it's pretty impressive that that he was able to do it and do it successfully.
Yeah, I mean, he really showed that he didn't, and that was the whole thing. Is if you look at, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, none of them were really able to break out of that.
No.
Like I said, I think I said during that episode, Eric, I was surprised that they had only had 2 albums in the 70s. They had Deja Vu and then the one later on. And but there was, if you look at their discographies, there's still, Crosby and Nash and Stills, and like they had all these different iterations of solo work and duos.
Interchangeable.
They never came of anything. And I think Neil Young made his point by like, why are you pushing me into this band? I really don't need it. And he really didn't.
No.
Right? I mean,
kind of similar to Joe Walsh, isn't it? His story and with Eagles, in that
his
sense,
own entity.
he was already a force unto himself, and joining that band was just what was the mindset there?
I think that was just fun for him. He's like,
maybe.
I think the thing with Joe Walsh is like, as long as I can still do my solo stuff, this will be fun, and it'll be a way, it's just something extra to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Neil Young was kind of, no slight against Joe Walsh, but Neil Young is kind of elevated above that because he's so prolific. He's a songwriter and, cranking out stuff on a Dylan-esque level, I think, right? Just kind of, they're often, lumped together, in style and form. And even Bob Dylan, when he heard Heart of Gold, he's like, what the fuck is this? He goes, if I want to hear someone to sound like Bob Dylan, I'll write a song and I'll sing it. He literally said, like, this is you're cutting it a little too close. Because if I want to hear me, I'll write a song and sing it.
It really has that vibe, but I'm thinking more. There's a little bit of the band, I think, in there as well, and
there's a lot of things in there.
Little Feat, bands.
Yeah,
of that
it pulls from a lot.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The thing about Neil Young, though, when I was listening to Harvest over and over, and the thing that he has that Dylan doesn't have, is when Neil Young sings a slow song. His voice gets very quivery, and that gives it a vulnerability that other artists don't have. When he's singing a song like, and anything out, up tempo, it's there. But when he sings something soft, he's got a certain vibrato or a quiver in his voice, which gives him its vulnerability because his register is higher as it is.
Yeah, he's got
so those things paired together kind of give his stuff a unique sound. Also, when he's singing it,
he's got a hell of a pitch. I mean, he's got clarity when he's singing loud and proud. I mean, he's damn. He captures your attention with that very, very distinct voice. So
you feel the emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So the impetus behind this album is, Neil Young bought a ranch out in California and started to renovate it, started working on it, and was moving some wood and totally fucked up his back.
Yeah. Yep.
Fucked it up to the point where he couldn't even stand up straight to hold an electric guitar. So while he was figuring everything, the best he could do was sit down on a chair and hold an acoustic guitar. So that basically informed, for the most part, how this album and these collections of songs were going to come into being, because he could not physically play an electric guitar because it was just too painful. He said he basically spent 2 years on his back, different therapists. He ended up having to get some surgery, and I think they fused some discs together. But this was a very painful time, but then also a joyous time because he got a new girlfriend, Carrie Snodgrass, who was an actress back in the she was an Easy Rider, I think 5 Easy Pieces. She was kind of kind of there, and I think he saw her in a film and contacted her, and then they started a relationship. So she was there at this ranch, and then he was just really out of commission. So these songs are, this for the most, with some weird exceptions. This is a collection of just really kind of acoustic songs, and then by the time we get to the last song, I think that was recorded after that because it goes full electric. For the last song, which is Words. But everything else is very much in that intimate sound and that vulnerable sound that he has, and I think that's, and I think this is probably a really, this album goes surprisingly quick, Rob.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I
It
don't know what it was. I was listening to it, I'm like, wait, this is over already? I was just kind of, like, which I think is a good thing. I think the collection is kind of strong as it is, and it just kind of flows with some exceptions.
Yeah. It doesn't have like the typical 10-minute Neil Young song in it, like Down by the River or Powderfinger or something like that. They're all short little, for the most part, songs like that don't have, long, except for maybe words. It doesn't really have long guitar solos or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's very to the point, very basic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it shows some range there, though, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
doubt.
And actually one of the songs was recorded live. The Needle and the Damage Done was recorded at Royce Hall in UCLA. So that was kind of an interesting thing too. Throw a little live ditty in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like 2 minutes long. And then he goes, of course, he's got to poke the Lynyrd Skynyrd snake with, it wasn't bad enough that he had a song called Southern Man, which Lynyrd Skynyrd, I think Sweet Home Alabama would come out in 73. So I think they were already aware, but he takes another swing at them with Alabama.
Yeah.
And he said in retrospect, he goes, you know what? He goes, in listening to the words and listening to that song, he goes, they were fully, fully okay. He was fully okay with them, taking that swipe. They were within their bounds to do it.
Oh.
So it's just
kind of a mutual respect there. Look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Neil Young always had that presence, though. I think it was very artists of his generation. People always kind of, I don't think anybody ever really spoke ill of him or derogatory in any way. I think he was well received, well respected within his circle. And, and a lot of, just a lot of, like you mentioned, long songs too. I mean, he could easily kind of slide into that sort of jam circuit too. Like with these long-winded, you could definitely see him walking on stage with like the likes of the Allman Brothers Band or something like that,
Right,
so and just kind of, just do that and then do something else. And,
and Crazy, with Crazy Horse. I mean, that was his, Live Rust. I mean, he became known for live albums as well. And those type of, opportunities to expand the sound out a little bit too. And then, just to go back to Heart of Gold, of course, she was on her way to being big, but if you listen, you can distinctively hear Linda Ronstadt on backing vocals for Heart of Gold, especially at the very last.
That's me.
Refrain.
To me, that's the only time you hear her is that last.
Well, you really line. On the very last refrain. You really, she really kind of goes for it a little bit,
Yeah.
But she's in there, and James Taylor is in there as well. But Linda Ronstadt wasn't huge yet. She was just kind of the year after this album came out. She would start her run of songs, and he wrote the song "Love Is a Rose." Did you know that she sings?
No, I didn't know that.
You know, "Love Is a Rose," right? You know that song?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he did a version of it. It was supposed to be out on one of his albums, and then it never came out, and then it showed up on a compilation. Just like "Lot of Love" for Nicolette Larson. Like, we know those songs by those artists, but he wrote "Lot of Love" too. And his I heard his version of "Lot of Love." It's very Neil Young, but I can't. Nicolette Larson's got the edge on it. It's got the flute solo. I mean, anything.
They both come back for Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Nicolette Larson and
she worked with Neil Young on a few albums as well. Yeah. So, he's got a stable of people that he works with or wrote for. All right, Jack Nietzsche. You guys. Jack Nietzsche is a acolyte of Phil Spector. He's kind of a wall of sound guy. He grew up. He cut his teeth with that. He worked a little bit with Sonny Bono in the '60s, who also was an acolyte of that wall of sound thing. He's
Played on a few
mostly known
Stones
for
albums.
the song "The Lonely Surfer," which is on the Pulp Fiction soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
He mainly a lot of surf music that Jack Nietzsche did. Jack Nietzsche produced 2 songs on this album. Okay. He produced A Man Needs a Maid.
Yeah.
And he produced There's a World. And if there are 2 songs that bring an album to a grinding halt, or one song, A Man Needs a Maid is probably one of the most overproduced songs I've ever heard in my life. You guys agree or disagree?
I agree.
It is a little much. Yeah.
Like go ahead, Rob.
Yeah.
Those 2 songs, I always found them odd choices for this album. They sort of, in my opinion, they don't really fit in at all. And it does when you listen to the album as a whole, it does slow it down a little bit. It's like it sort of takes you out of that mind frame, of the other songs, and then you got to get back into it. But yeah.
I think what throws you is his use of the orchestra, the London Symphony Orchestra, of all things. Just couldn't find a orchestra in America. Like it just sort of like I'm sure there's plenty of symphonies and I would say every state, perhaps. I don't know.
I just think that Neil Young and orchestra, it doesn't really go together.
Right. Well, it's not that. The song is great. Like, okay, let's just talk about A Man Needs a Maid. It's a totally okay song. It fits his vocal. Here's the thing. Here's the disconnect, I think. His vocal, he's singing it like it's going to be arranged like the rest of the album.
Right.
And when you get to the end of that song with these big, like he gets blown out because his voice is not matched to the intensity of the the London Symphony Orchestra. That's not a problem because
bombastic,
exactly have a little tact with it, and use the strings in the right way. Jack Nietzsche just the orchestra just blowing him out.
Yeah.
To the point where when he's singing the refrain a man needs, it's like the orchestra is 10 decibels above him and is washing him out. And that's what makes it weird.
I think that song would have been better served with him just playing the piano, just him and the piano.
Yeah.
Would have been
much more effective.
Or wait until he got better and do it just electric like he did with Words. So there's basically 3 types of songs on here. There's the Neil Young acoustic. There's the 2 Jack Nietzsche crazy things. And then the final tune when he finally was able to play electric guitar, and I think that song fits in better with the rest of the album. I think Words fits in better because it's more of a natural evolution to that.
Yeah.
And not this acoustic song that has this over the top arrangement of, I was expecting fucking John Williams to come out and start, the fucking opening overture to Star Wars. It's like that. Right? Eric is like that bombastic.
No, it totally is. And it's like you say, it just, come on, man, read the room, just sort of, but I mean, taking those kinds of risks, those kinds of, that kind of creativity that sort of, happened a lot, I guess you could say. Think of the early stuff with James Taylor when he was recording in England and he had all those orchestral arrangements trying to make him sound like the Beatles, and it just did not flow. It did not work at all, for what he was doing, so it just there is a certain temperance, I think, to both of these artists that that requires a sort of solitude, a quietness, and there's no subtlety in that whatsoever. It's just I mean,
unless you're going to go that way with an album, then do do that experiment.
Right.
You know, if you're going to do it, go full in. It just seemed weird having just 2 songs like that, and then everything else was really very much in the same vein.
Mm-hmm.
So it really makes them kind of stick out. And it makes for an interesting listen because you're certainly not ready. I certainly wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, right.
Like I wasn't ready for the intensity.
I remember hearing that a long time ago. When I first heard this album being played, I wasn't necessarily into Neil Young at the time, or I was just maybe too young or whatever. But yeah, that track, I almost forgot about it, and upon listening to it, I'm like, oh my god, this.
It's on this album.
It's on this album. There it is. I'm like, oh no. I was waiting. I was just,
It's almost like a crescendo in an opera or something.
Right.
It's that. We can't. You really, if you haven't listened to this album, it's a fantastic album. But it's just these songs. These 2 songs are such an oddity that it makes for it makes it a very interesting and kind of curious listen because it just adds to the.
I just wonder what he was thinking. Like, was it his idea? Was it the producer?
He worked with Jack Nietzsche before, not as a producer, but he's on a couple of the other albums, like playing piano and this and the other thing.
Right.
And then, gave him.
Yeah, because the rest of the album, the rest of the songs are very intimate and cozy in a way, but and then like you said, it sort of smacks you in the face, that stuff. It's like
the only thing I can think of is there are several like composers at the time, like the early 70s was very famous for like these like really sort of like sharp, like you think of the soundtrack to like French Connection, for example, or something. With the composer of and it's just so scorchingly like it's almost cutting, and it's like I wonder if that was the mindset there, or just doing something so just so not off-putting necessarily, but just so brazen, like that, just to kind of get.
I think brazen is the right word,
right around that time frame. I mean, the turn of the tide in the 70s. Vietnam's still going on. All this stuff, the Watergate. Just that grittiness of the time. And this was like the flower power was going away at this point, right? I mean, I think I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I can almost see that in other types of music and other, what other people were doing. So maybe that was just something that made those discussions were happening between him and.
Yeah, like let's try this.
Let's do something. Yeah, like
dramatic stab,
right,
of music or crescendo or swell. Mm-hmm. To get to that point in '72, as we've mentioned in the past, it was that whole singer-songwriter thing going on, and music was getting a lot more introspective. And Neil Young was no different. This was a lot of the songs were about his personal life, about his budding relationship with Carrie Snodgrass, and towards the end. He says even the music also starts to get doubtful, like because he wasn't sure is this going to be a long-term relationship with her? Are we going to last? Are we going to make it? So there is a lot of different things in the relationship. And then another classic is Old Man. I mean, it's just which was actually written about when Neil Young bought the ranch. There was a guy that lived on the ranch. Like the ranch came with a guy who lived there, and he took care of like the cows, like he took care of things, and it was and he wrote it about that guy because the guy was really old. But Neil Young's like, I guess whenever somebody bought this, the guy came with it. He was like the caretaker of the place. But it's such a powerful song. And do any of you guys ever see the movie Lords of Dogtown?
I've heard of it.
It was about the skateboarding scene in the 70s.
Yeah.
About the birth of it in California. And that song is used to such good effect because Heath Ledger was in it, and he was marvelous in it. And it's one I don't recall ever hearing Old Man in a film until I saw Lords of Dogtown, and it was used to such great effect. It's just with that and the needle and the damage done and Heart of Gold, I mean, yeah, you can hear, like I said, you can hear the emotion in his voice, like that fragility, right, or the vulnerability. And I think that's just the way Eric, right? That's just the way his vocal timbre is. Like I said, it's got that quiver in it.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of brings something extra that he may not even be intending to.
Yeah. I agreed. Just totally. So it's so naked, and so the vulnerability of it is just, and you don't necessarily, and it's not necessarily a nice sound. There's a definite melancholy to it, which is again very effective with what he's singing about and his songwriting. And but man, yeah, you're right. I mean, it just that's one of the distinct voices that for sure that you kind of know what you're getting into. There's really no like, he doesn't surprise you often with I mean, he might with his harder edge stuff, the more sort of grungy stuff that he was like the early grunge godfather, like he was, that kind of thing. But you always know what you're getting with Neil Young. I think it's just, yeah.
I think his guitar playing also, it sort of matches his vocals perfectly.
Yeah.
And that, he's not the smoothest guitar player. He's very, very staccato, very percussion like playing,
very strummy.
And it sort of melds with his vocal style perfectly. He doesn't, as a guitarist, he's not going to have those smooth licks like David Gilmour might have and stuff like that. But it works perfectly with his vocal style, I think.
It's almost very stark chords structure there, like almost power chords, but in an acoustic sense. Very sort of like strummy kind of, but it's almost like accenting what he's singing about it. So it adds that period to that sentence, or whatever, that exclamation, or in some cases exclamation point. So there, but yeah, it is a nice compliment to what he's doing.
Yeah, there was one of the, I don't know if it was a drummer that worked on this album, but Neil Young is like one of he wants like the best of the best players, and the drummer was like, he wanted me to play with him, but then he told me to sit on my right hand, literally play with one hand. He goes, so he wants really good players, but he wants to deconstruct them. He goes, and so I had to figure out, I literally had to sit on my right hand and play. And he goes, and that threw my tempo off. It threw everything off. And he goes, but that's what he goes, there's not a Neil Young song that's in tempo. It's like to Rob's point of the way he plays and just the way he does things is he wants the best people around him, but he wants to deconstruct that. Right. He wants to know that you can play stuff, but he doesn't want you to play that kind of stuff. He wants to pull it down and make it as simple as possible, but get really good people to challenge them to do it. And the drummer was like, I totally had to rethink how I was going to play because I can only use one hand. So, and if you listen to, I think some of the songs when the guy's hitting the hi-hat, when he hits the snare, the hi-hat's not being hit because he's doing it with one hand. He doesn't have that ability to play with both.
Yeah.
And he's like, he would tell you, Neil would tell me exactly what to play. I didn't get to, fill anything or any ideas. And he goes, if I got it wrong, you get the look from him once, and that was it. So I didn't know he was that. It seemed like I got the impression you'd be kind of a looser guy, but it seems like this loose feel is very much like a controlled thing. Like he understands what he wants to get and isn't just leaving it to a jam,
right? Yeah,
to get it right, like something like the band would do, or something kind of jam, and it comes out feeling natural.
Dylan would do this a lot too.
Yeah.
He would take like really fine musicians that surround himself with these people, but you're not going to get any kind of soloing, or you're not going to get you hear just these weird sort of accents and just sort of within its own circle. I think, Time Out of Mind comes to mind when what we're talking about here. It's like a lot of the musicians on that record are playing just for that effect. Like, everything is off tempo. Everything is sort of melded together. How do you come up with that in your head? How do you, so no, it couldn't have been an easy thing or just something, because it would be a mess if you just left it up for, it's just a happy accident that it just, turned out that way. No, it does take, I think a certain kind of precision, if that's the right word, but it's just not, but yet not precise. It's like there's something to be said of doing some things abstract like that. I think it's great.
Yeah, Rob, I think right. I think that whole notion of having great people, but tearing it down.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You could get, like Eric said, you could probably get that feeling, but you'd have to run hours of tape.
Right. Yeah. And the great part about the way he does that is all the songs, they all sort of could sound like they could be playing live too. There's polishedness to it, but then again, there's not a polish thing to it. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about the way he records songs and plays them that gives us, there's like a rawness to it in a sense. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
No, perfect example is the needle and the damage done. You don't know that's alive. That you don't know that's recorded live till the very end.
Right. Till you
hear a smattering of applause, and then brilliantly, like words, like just like all of a sudden you get this heavy guitar that just like cuts the applause off. But to your point, you listen to the needle and the damage done. You think, okay, here's another just kind of, him and the guitar, another acoustic song. But then you hear this applause at the end that was live, and and that's the version. Mm-hmm. That's the album version of it. Is a recorded live. With an audience, so yeah, to your point, what he's doing in the studio is not much different than what he's going to deliver. It's that intimate thing. He can just kind of do that, and you don't know the difference until you hear the applause at the end. It's like, oh, okay, oh, that was live, right? Like, oh, that was like, wow,
yeah,
that was really something. I do have a 3 Lies and a Truth for Neil Young. I forgot to mention that at the top. I forgot to mention at the top of the,
been a while.
The show that we've got a 3 Lies and a Truth. Look, both of you guys taking sips from the mug at the same time. You're both getting ready. You're like, okay, I need to wet the whistle and.
Well, before we get to that, I just want to ask both of you guys, like, why it's a fine album.
Yeah,
it's worth anybody's time to talk about, but it's just, is there a particular insistence on or for you, Dean, like why
Harvest
mm-hmm. This one, or you, Rob, like, does this album speak to you in a deep way? Or
absolutely,
you go first.
Yeah,
as someone who's as someone who likes to play guitar and try to sing sometimes, this album really hits home in the sense that, especially the song Harvest, little side note there, that it was one of the first songs that I ever played in front of people on my own.
Oh, there you go.
And the thing that I love about Neil Young that always brings me to him is his songs are very structured, very simplistic in their structure, but it's amazing that you hear his songs and you say, oh, that's so simple. And as a guitarist, you go to try to play, try to create something similar. And he's like, wow, he sort of keeps it simple, but brings it to another level.
Deceptively simple.
Yeah.
It sounds deceptively simple, but it's, but it's not. For me, I mean, yeah, I Heart of Gold, like I said, is probably like, I remember hearing that on the radio when it came out. Probably a very early memory of music for me was Heart of Gold. So there was always that song always gave me like just there's like a warm feeling from that song. There's a vulnerability of it, right? I'm a miner searching for a heart of gold. Like he's kind of really able to put into words like the longing of love, right? Into that, it keeps me searching for a heart of gold, and I'm getting old. And it's just something about the vulnerability of the lyrics, on this album. And I think I didn't really know the story of him starting a new relationship, but it all makes sense. And it just kind of, and now also knowing the backstory of him being forced to play acoustic guitar really kind of informed how this album was going to go, because he was limited with what he could do. So it also makes me wonder, like, if he never got injured, what would this sound like? Or would we have gotten some of these songs that he was forced to work with the acoustic guitar on and make them acoustic songs?
Right.
And it's a very cohesive album. I just like I said, despite the two Nietzsche songs, I just like the way it just flows nicely. There's a lot of great statements in there. Like I said, Old Man, The Needle and the Damage Done. I mean, he's really talking about things that were going on at the time, that it was, written about Danny Whitten, who was still alive at the time, I believe, but then he would die from a heroin overdose. So Neil Young was, much like he did with Ohio, was also able to speak to what was going on at the time, while also making it personal. So he had that ability to be vulnerable, to speak to things of the time, but then also to personalize it and make you feel like it's that you connect with it.
I think you hit it right on the head there for me. It's like it's the personalization of the lyrics, that it's the simplicity of the lyrics that blow my mind. And he's not trying to be Dylan. He's not trying to be poetic necessarily, with a lot of sort of throwing in a lot of words that mean something else and that kind of thing. He gets right to the point, and it just, it works on that level. Funnily enough, Dean, this will blow your mind. How I got into Neil Young was Claire. Remember Claire from Suncoast?
Suncoast, yeah. She was a big Neil Young fan.
Huge Neil Young fan. Yeah.
See that?
Every time she came to, work in the store for the day or whatever, like we would talk about Neil Young. Like, oh, Neil Young. She would just go on and on and on about it. So I kind of, that's how I, that was like early 90s. Yeah. And then Harvest Moon had just come out in like 92, which I love. That's probably my personal favorite album. That album's just stellar.
A lot of the same musicians on both albums.
Yeah, it's just stellar. Just the sound of that. How much influence does that album have on what's going on today? My Morning Jacket and Lord Huron. I think we mentioned that with this that heavy reverb thing, that spacey kind of sound I love, and that steel pedal guitar and all that kind of thing. And I just love that. But yeah, going back and listening to this again, I remember hearing just over the years, like bits and pieces. I had cousins that were older on my dad's side who would play albums for me. It's like I didn't really get into it, but I did. It was just cool to listen to music. Every time we went to visit and that kind of thing. This was one of them. Yeah, but over the year, it's really nice to come back to, though. Yeah. It was really, this whole week, I was just kind of, this is good stuff. So,
and one of the to speak to is Care of the Earth. When this was released, before it was released, he wanted the actual dust, the dust jacket, the record jacket. He wanted it to be biodegradable.
Okay.
He wanted it to be able to kind of decompose, and then all you'd have left is the plastic. And the record company's like, well, what if these records are sitting in a warehouse for a while? And they start to decompose. You're going to have a bunch of plastic.
It's just like
it's crumbling. He had some great ideas, but the record company was like, yes, but
no, it's not very feasible.
He was way ahead of his time, I guess, with packaging.
A little compost in the back there.
Yeah, it's like what was all that? Oh, that's 5 cases of Harvest that we didn't sell.
Using it as fertilizer for the
so go take
the land.
Take the plastic jackets and the records out and throw the rest in the garbage. Throw it out in the field. So very, very interesting. And just a little tidbit. This came up twice. I saw it like about a month ago. Do you know the story with Neil Young and in The Last Waltz? You know what was going on with that and why they had to use special effects on him?
No.
They actually had to go in and digitally, not digitally because it wasn't digital at the time, but they had to go in and create a special effect just for Neil Young in The Last Waltz, because he came out on stage and he had a nugget of coke on the outside of his nostril.
I did hear this story. Yeah.
And they had to, and after they had the film, they had to go in and paint and matte over each frame and paint over the coke nugget that was like on the outside of his nose.
Oh my God.
Oh, God.
Now, is this back in the day?
This is when they saw the foot, after they developed the footage, like he's got to,
or is this like remaster? Like they
did it in the original film. They had to go back and paint in and matte in like some skin tone to cover up the rock.
Man, they should have left
rock that was in his nostril.
Why wouldn't you leave it? Why wouldn't Scorsese leave that?
Because I'm sure he wanted the film to get distributed at the time. They would have been like, oh my God, it would have been
well, considering that half the artists are off their fucking.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie Robertson. If anybody, I would have thought Robbie Robertson. He was so pale and sweaty,
shaking, and
we're all thin. I mean, these guys were,
freaking Danko is like, he's coked out of his mind, and
But, I mean, Robbie Robertson was like pale as a ghost and like skinny. Looked like he was on a hunger strike or something.
Yeah,
it was that bad. But who would have thought that Mr. Neil Young was the guy that was
wow,
having all the fun. So yeah, look it up. Maybe I'll link it in the show notes. But they actually show like close-ups on the YouTube video, like close-ups of the film footage. You could tell that it's kind of like painted. Like they
have to dive into on the criterion. I'd like to dive in some of the features. Maybe they do mention it.
It might be.
Yeah. I haven't watched the features on that particular edition. But yeah. I'll check it out.
All right. Well, you know what? I was going to use that in the 3 lies and a truth. So that's a bonus for you. That's a truth.
Okay.
But here we go. Let's roll the theme.
3 lies and a truth we spin through the haze and the dead.
Come on, Rob, break out the guitar. Play along.
Who cares? Let the game begin.
There we go. 3 lies and a truth. So we've got 4 statements. 3 of them are patently false. Only one of these uncommon facts about Neil Young is actually true. So we're going to read off the 4 statements to each one of these gentlemen. They're going to decide. You at home also can play along. Let us know on Instagram, Facebook, and or YouTube what your decision was. And if we stumped you, again, these are 3 lies and 1 truth. So here we go. Statement number 1. Don't answer until we've done them all. Statement number 1. The Cinnamon Girl in his song from Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere is Joan Baez. Statement number 2. Neil was sued by Geffen Records in the 80s because the albums he was releasing did not sound like Neil Young records. Statement number 3. As an avid lover of trains, Neil Young became part owner of the Tonka Toy Company. And statement number 4. After being introduced to Charles Manson by Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, Neil agreed to record one of his songs, but ended up changing the lyrics and the title. So I'm going to read these 4 statements off again, and 3 of them are lies. Only one of these is truth. Number 1, the Cinnamon Girl in his song from Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere is Joan Baez. Number 2, Neil was sued by Geffen Records in the 80s because the albums he was releasing did not sound like Neil Young records. Number 3, as an avid lover of trains, Neil became part owner of the Tonka Toy Company. And number 4, after being introduced to Charles Manson by Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, Neil agreed to record one of his songs, but ended up changing the lyrics and the title. Okay, so we're going to let the guest is going to go first. We're going to push him into the vat of acid like Jack Napier did in Batman 89.
All right.
Well, 3 of those. 3 of them are lies. I need to know from you what is the truth. That's all I want from you. I don't want nothing else but the truth.
I know I know he had problems with Geffen in the 80s, and I think he even released some pretty crazy albums. But I'm not sure if there was any lawsuits involved. That's what I'm trying to think. Um, because I know he had problems in the 80s with the record company, but I'm not sure about the suing that part of it.
Okay.
Um, I don't think Cinnamon Girl was Joan Baez. Um, you know what? I'm gonna go with the Geffen one.
Going with the Geffen.
Yeah.
Okay. Eric, you want me to read them again, or you got it?
I think I got. Well, I mean, I'm gonna go with the last one.
After being introduced to Charles Manson by Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, Neil agreed to record one of his songs, but ended up changing the lyrics and the title. Okay.
Yeah.
Go with that one? All right.
I'm gonna go with that one.
All right. We got two. I love it. We have two different ones, which is always nice. Which means one of them's right, one of them's wrong, or both of them are wrong. You've got a couple of different options at home. Make sure you lock in your choice. Let us know on your favorite social media site that we're on, which you chose. So let's see. The first lie. The Cinnamon Girl in his song from Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere is Joan Baez. Actually, he never said who it was. So we don't know who Cinnamon Girl is.
Okay.
The next lie. As an avid lover of trains, Neil became part owner of the Tonka Toy Company. That's incorrect. He bought part of the Lionel train.
Lionel, yes. It wouldn't be Tonka because that's dump trucks.
I know, for people that don't know, half the people that are listening are like, what the fuck is Tonka and what's Lionel anyway? I don't know. Is that micro machines?
Thomas the Tank Engine. There you go.
It's not Bluey, is it? All right, so we've got two left. So one of these is correct, and one of these is one's the truth and one's the lie. We'll go with the lie first, and then we'll go with the truth. So the next lie is, after being introduced to Charles Manson by Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, Neil agreed to record one of his songs, but ended up changing the lyrics and the title. That is a lie, but that did actually happen. But it happened to the Beach Boys. They recorded one of his songs and changed, because once they found out, afterwards, the song by the Beach Boys, "Never Learn Not to Love," was a totally other song with different lyrics written by Manson. Because but Neil Young was there. Dennis Wilson did introduce Neil Young to Manson, and Neil Young had said when he picked up the guitar, like Manson had people captivated. So the guy could, there were people that were interested in connecting him with musicians. I mean, despite the weird thing, he was actually making inroads into the music industry. Vis-a-vis Dennis Wilson and his friend Terry Melcher, and that's where the whole murders. That's where Terry Melcher used to live, where Tate was living, and he sent them there originally to kill Terry Melcher, because Terry Melcher wasn't returning his phone calls or wouldn't record him. He's like, this guy's too weird. But Terry Melcher wasn't living there anymore. So anyway. So the truth of the matter is, Neil was sued by Geffen Records in the 80s because it's saying, Neil, these records you're making don't sound like Neil Young records. You're making an album that's all vocoder.
Yeah.
You're right. He had that album React, and then he had that album Trans, which was all like electronic. And Geffen's like, not as advertised. This was not what was on the label. We didn't buy this. We ordered Jif, and we got sunflower butter instead, and cashew butter. So he did get sued, but that's when that in the 80s is when he's really kind of was just doing whatever, right? But they sued him. They're like, but then it's like, well, what is, I think at that point it became like, I think that's when he became undefined, because when he did just stuff like that was just so avant-garde for him.
And did he do an album like with like doo-wop songs
after that? Yeah, he had the slick back hair on the cover. Yeah. What the hell was that? What the hell was that album?
Wondering or something? Wondering.
The heart. Yeah, but what was the was it the heart? Not heart. Did it have like heartbreak in the title? Everybody's rocking. That's what it was called. Everybody's rocking. Yeah, weird. And then he had this note's for you, right? When
Yeah,
I ain't
that's right.
singing
Wow.
about Pepsi. I ain't singing about Coke.
Yeah.
This note's for you. And of course, rocking in the free world. I mean, the guy's a warrior. I mean, he's just one of the original co-founders of Farm Aid as well.
Yes.
Oh,
So
right, yeah,
he's
that's
always he's never been afraid to speak his mind. That's the thing about Neil Young is, like the whole thing with Spotify, right? He took his music off of Spotify about two or 3 years ago. He's a big proponent of high quality digital audio as well. He's not like an MP3 fan. He put out his own music player. What was that thing called?
All right, that's right.
Not Sonic. It was just this whole, and it was like this super high bit rate music player. Is it not Signal? Pono, Pono is the music service and a player. It's called Pono, and it's uncompressed. So like supposedly to rival like any sound made during the recording of an album. So he's a big proponent of that kind of stuff and model trains. So. All right. What are some of the keepers? We know what we're chucking off the cliff on this album. At least I know. I don't know if I'm speaking. I'm not know if I'm speaking for the masses here, but for me, the Nietzsche stuff, I mean, don't let it be a road bump when you're listening to it because it's fine. But yeah, the good, for me, it's Old Man, Heart of Gold, and Words. Out on the Weekend. I mean, all this stuff is,
Yeah.
I mean, all of it is good. But Eric, what do you got?
I like the title track. I love Old Man. And of course, and the Needle and the Damage Done, I think, is very effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Greg Allman did a really great version of that at one of the Crossroads festivals.
Yeah.
That's right before he died, too.
Oh.
So, which, yeah.
A little bittersweet.
Yep. but yeah, that's a that one cuts right to the bone.
Yeah, it gets it's a short song, but it gets to the point.
That's right. Yep.
Rob, what do you got?
Harvest, the title track has always been one of my favorites on this. I'm a big Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere fan of that album. So the song Words,
yeah,
in my opinion, sort of could have fit right in with that album.
This feeling evokes that
same type of feeling. Old Man is great. It's besides those other two songs, it's pretty much a complete album for me.
Yeah,
I could turn on any of those songs and I'm satisfied.
Yeah, the album clocks in at 37 minutes, so it's a quick one. But I think that, like I said, there's no need to overstay your welcome. I think he says everything he needs to say succinctly in shorter songs. He gets it. He gets the points across, and I don't think it's the quantity. It's the quality in this case, right? It's the quality of the songwriting, it's the quality of the arrangement, and it's the quality of the performance. I think those are the things with Neil Young is like kind of whatever he's doing. I never get the impression that he is not bought into it. No matter how crazy or whatever it is, I always get the impression that whatever it is, he's in on it. He's really behind it, not just doing it for gimmick's sake. Which I think is a testament to his career because, like you said, he turned his back on once he hit number one, he's like, well,
yeah.
I don't want to get on that hamster wheel, and then decided just to continue doing whatever he felt was right. And I guess that's one of the true hallmarks of an artist, right? Is you just kind of follow your North Star, wherever that points you to, whatever it tells you to do. If it tells you to do more of the same, then that's what you do. If it tells you slick your hair back and do rockabilly in the 80s, you do it. You know,
and he was a big inspiration for all those grunge bands too. You know, they call him the Godfather of
grunge. You know, and then he would get back together with CSN in the 80s for American Dream, which was, I was like, whatever. And then him and Stills did an album together, I think, around this time.
Yeah.
Him and Steven Stills did an album, and they went on tour together, and then Neil Young just didn't show up for the tour. He just left in the middle, and he sent him a telegram saying, "Hey, this thing started spontaneously, and it's going to end that way. Eat a peach." And he wrote, "Eat a peach." And that was it. And like that was like that's how he never didn't tell him. He left the tour and sent him a telegram.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
and said, we did this on a whim, and it's ending the same way for me.
Oh man!
But these guys love each like the way they fuck with each other. The way even just the CSN also the way they would fight like cats and dogs. But then they're on this album, like Stills and Crosby are on this album as well. And. So it just seems like there was almost like a relationship, like a relative relationship, like you're kind of with each other and you piss each other off, but then in the end you just kind of like the music is what is the glue, and all that, and then in the 80s, the bygones are bygones, and you just kind of like, yeah, we were young and we were just doing silly stuff, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Harvest from 1972, a 4 times platinum album. I mean, this one is just singer-songwriter 101. For the early, if you're looking at early 70s, James Taylor, Gordon Lightfoot, Joni Mitchell, Carly Simon, all those artists. I mean, this was, America pretty much, copped, probably owes a debt to this album as well, I'm sure. It was just like Rob said, it was just this early 70s was just an era of just stuff springing up and a new awareness or a new internal awareness of what was going on. And then it being okay to be vulnerable like that. And it being okay just to be a lone voice like that. Yeah. So, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Rob DeStefano, thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us. Thank you for cleaning up your area. So we didn't have to be slapped in the face each time looking at the Godfather poster on the ground. I'm glad you have righted that wrong.
I appreciate being on here. I love doing this every time. This is awesome.
We love having you. We love when you bring your considerable musical knowledge to bear. And like I said, when we were doing this one, I was like, well, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, we got to get him for the young. Solo. So I don't know that we'll ever be doing any Graham Nash solo
superstar great
stuff. Maybe if we ever did the Hollies, that's about as close as Graham Nash will get. Solo, but and Crosby as well, and Stephen Stills might be. He was probably the most formidable of everybody in that group, I think, because he really could play guitar and do everything too. But anyway. Topic for another time. Eric, of course, me and Eric will be sitting here waiting. He's going to be on his comfy couch. I'm going to be in my sleek gamer chair until we see you again. So for Rob, for Eric, this has been Dean, and we will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.